Welcome to the Fitness Simplified podcast. I'm Brooke Davis, women's functional nutritionist and fitness specialist with Elysian Women's Wellness, and I'm here to simplify your fitness. Welcome back to the podcast. So at Elysian Women's Wellness, we are all about simplifying health and fitness. So today we're diving into a topic that many of my clients and likely many of you listening struggle with, and that is bloating. So you know that feeling when your jeans fit in the morning, but by 3 p.m. you're secretly wondering if it's socially acceptable to unbutton them on your desk, or maybe you feel like you're doing all the right things, but you're still constantly feeling puffy, uncomfortable, maybe gassy. Well, you're not alone. So in this episode, I'm going to be walking you through some of the 3 biggest mistakes that I see women making when they're trying to fix their bloating, and most importantly, what you can do instead. Because just throwing random probiotics at the problem or cutting out all of your food groups isn't necessarily the answer, and it might be part of what's keeping you stuck in this vicious cycle. So if you are ready to feel lighter, more energized, and actually tune in with your body, then stay tuned. So mistake number 1, this is, as always, chasing the quick fix supplement. So buying every probiotic, every digestive enzyme, every detox tea, or thinking that even worse, like laxative teas are going to be your solution. This is an issue, right? We see so many of these pop up in TikTok and our Instagram feeds, and maybe it even has 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon. They're promising to flatten your belly overnight or claim to just really be the magic cure-all. And I know that when you're uncomfortable and you're bloated all the time, you'll try anything, right? You'll try to take anything that might help. But here's the issue is that most of these products, if they're not just like a laxative, which a lot of them are, they are band-aids at best, and at worst, they can actually make things worse. So for example, if somebody has SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, taking a generic probiotic could actually potentially feed the wrong kind of bacteria and intensify your bloating. Or digestive enzymes might help for one person, but be totally unnecessary, even just like disrupting to the gut microbiome for someone else. So there's no one size fits all. Same with HCl or hydrochloric acid, which you need, but if you have underlying parasites, H. pylori, bacteria, right, that can actually make those infections worse. So even if your symptoms look like someone else's, the root cause of it could be totally different, right? Bloating can actually stem from low stomach acid, sluggish motility or movement through the bowels and intestines, gut dysbiosis, so imbalance of bacteria in the gut, fluid sensitivities, stress, hormone imbalances, right? There's a whole host of things that could be an issue. So really just grabbing the next most popular probiotic is not likely to solve the issue, especially long term. So here's what I recommend. If you are serious about getting to the bottom of your bloating causes, number 1 is tracking your symptoms in a journal, okay? Noting what you ate, how you felt, what time it happened, even your stress levels, menstrual cycle phase, where you're at in that. And what you'll likely notice is some patterns starting to show up, okay? Next is paying attention to where you're actually bloating. Is it happening right up after meals? Is it like higher up in the stomach? And this could be like stomach acid issues. Is it lower and more delayed? Like, is it later on after you eat? So this could be fermentation, motility issues. So where you're having the discomfort can actually make an impact. And then if this has been going on for a long time, if things that you've tried aren't working, some of the foundational things, which like I said, we'll talk about a little bit more, but right? Test, don't guess. There are functional labs like a GI map, and if it points to it, a SIBO breath test. These can actually reveal like what's going on, getting deeper into it. Again, looking at dysbiosis, intestinal permeability, if you have infections, things like that. Okay, that could actually save you. Testing can be obviously expensive, but in the long run, it could actually save you a lot of money by truly knowing what's going on versus just throwing a bunch of money at random supplements, for your symptoms. So working smarter, not harder, right? We want to actually solve the problem long term. So, mistake number 2 is going to be over restricting food. I know a really popular one is the low FODMAP, and most people will go on this and they'll be like, yeah, I tried the low FODMAP and it worked until I stopped doing it. And that was it. And then I was done and I went back to eating whatever I wanted. Over restricting food, right? And a lot of women, when they're trying to fix their bloating, right, you're going to go to some basics, right? Maybe dairy, gluten, sugar, maybe try to Whole30, like I said, the low FODMAP, without really knowing why. And again, I get it. You're, bloated, you're tired, maybe you're feeling puffy and you just want some relief. And like I said, to be fair, these kinds of elimination diets can actually be really beneficial. They can bring some short-term relief often, especially if you are reacting to a food, which is not always the case. But the issue is that they're not meant to be long-term solutions. And when you stay in that restriction mode for too long, when you keep those foods out of your diet, you can actually harm your gut health by starving good bacteria that feed on a lot of those plant fibers and that variety. And gut diversity is a huge key of a healthy digestive system of your microbiome. Okay. And so, like I said, cutting those things out, it may not even have been the problem, but if you just go right back to, eating those things after cutting them out for a long time, it might be now because your body doesn't have the gut bacteria to now digest that. And so it ultimately makes you more sensitive over time, not less. Plus, like, speaking of mental health, right? When you're afraid to eat certain foods, we can look at triggering food fear, right? Anxiety, under eating, all of which make bloating, fatigue, the things you're trying to solve, even worse. And then outside of this, most people, what they do is that they do these elimination diets. And even if you do them for whatever, a long period of time, at some point, we want to do reintroductions because our goal is to figure out why you're bloating in the first place. So was it a food? Did removing the food actually fix it, or did your body just need time to heal, which can be a component of that? And then when you're adding things back in, you might actually find what you were sensitive to versus just going back to what you're doing before and not doing this systematically. So instead of, like I said, just immediately going into these elimination diets, maybe thinking you have to eat like this forever, if you're going to use an elimination approach, which we do forms of that, you want to make sure that it's short term, it's intentional. Okay, so this means that you have a plan to reintroduce foods, assessing how your body reacts as you go. Again, you don't just remove things indefinitely, unless, of course, you're like physically allergic to them, you're getting, anaphylactic reactions, things like that, then of course, like, by all means, cut them out, and that's likely not going to change. So, but if you're just having, gut sensitivity issues, things like that, likely you don't have to remove these things forever. And so instead of really like obsessing over what to cut out, thinking really about shifting your focus to what you can add in to support your gut. So thinking about cooking your veggies instead of eating them raw, because eating them raw or cooking them helps break down those fibers. It makes it more easily digestible. Sometimes that's the fix. I've even heard things which I actually don't know if there's any scientific premise for this. I know there is in terms of glucose management for carbohydrates and like resistant fibers or resistant starches, but eating cold cooked broccoli versus like hot broccoli. Some people can just digest it a little bit better. So really everyone is so individual, and it may come down to just those small tweaks that actually help you to reduce that bloating versus even cutting it out completely. And then having things that are going to, again, if you do remove, right, we want to remove the stressor and then we want to restore. And so we're going to use things and then consume things that are going to help you heal. So things like bone broth, ginger tea can help with digestion. Bitter greens can help get those digestive enzymes going. And calm inflammation without being super harsh on the system. And so those are things we want to make sure that we're incorporating in addition to elimination. It's not just cut these things out and see what happens. Another thing is supporting your body's natural digestive process. Things like apple cider vinegar, eating fermented foods, making sure that you are being mindful when you are eating. So sitting down, smelling your food, even the whole mindful eating concept, right? Smelling your food, that is actually the first step of digestion. When you smell something delicious and you start to salivate, that gets digestive enzymes going, etc. And then once that food hits your mouth, your taste buds are sending signals to your brain and your stomach to get those digestive enzymes going, those digestive juices flowing. And then of course we have chewing your food. That is this mechanical digestion. And the more you can chew your food, right, swirl it around in your mouth, get all your saliva on that, which actually has enzymes in it to help break down your food, the better you're going to digest your food. And then eating slowly, take a few deep breaths, get into that parasympathetic state, your rest and digest state. This will bring your body better ability to digest. And then taking time, right? When you eat too fast, not only are you likely not chewing, you're probably you're swallowing air, which can cause bloating, but then you're potentially getting overfull, which can also cause bloating and not feeling great, causing gas, things like that. So even just those really small shifts can help you support your gut while taking you out of that stress mode. And again, that has nothing to do with what we've cut out, that restriction, anything like that. And then mistake number 3 is completely ignoring, we touched on a little bit, but completely ignoring stress and hormonal factors. And this is a huge one. And it is one that most women don't really think about when it comes to their bloating. And if you are aware of your cycle, if you're tracking your cycle, if you're keeping a journal, then you can kind of tie these things back to periods in your cycle, in your monthly cycle, where your digestion is less optimal. So making sure that you're not focusing just on the food, right? It may have actually nothing to do with the food that you're eating, and the root cause might be your nervous system or your hormones. And I see this all the time where you're cutting out all the foods, you're trying all the supplements, maybe drinking all the teas and detoxing, but no one is talking about stress reduction and hormone shifts, especially during perimenopause when we have all of these major shifts happening. And so when your body is in this constant state of stress, whether it is emotional, physical, if you are under recovered from workouts, if you are undernourishing, if your boss is yelling at you, you have these deadlines, okay, we have cortisol, which we cannot remiss. And your cortisol, right, is staying elevated. This is your stress hormone. But one of its kind of big impacts that it has is to slow down your digestion. It takes you out of that parasympathetic state, and it reduces the amount of energy you're putting towards that digestion. It actually takes blood, away from the organs to the extremities. And so it literally tells your gut to pause so that you can prioritize, running from that saber-tooth tiger. And this means that things are not moving through your digestive tract as well. There may be trapped gas in there, which all, of course, cause bloating. So on top of that, we have fluctuations like estrogen dominance that are going to slow down motility, imbalance gut bacteria, low thyroid function, which can come from shifts in estrogen and progesterone, especially during perimenopause. And all of those mess with your digestion. Estrogen has a role in bile production and fluid retention. So when those hormones are off, you're not producing enough bile. That is part of your digestive juices, and then fluid retention. So you're retaining water, you feel puffy and bloated. That all, of course, has to be factored in. The thyroid, that impacts how quickly things are moving through your digestive tract, right? That is your metabolism kind of control center. And then low progesterone, that reduces the amount that slows your motility, right? So that contributes to constipation, which if you're backed up, you're bloated. So if you're only looking at food and you're not factoring in some of these, stress and hormones, you're really missing a huge part of the picture. So what can you do? First things first, we want to address your stress. I know, yawn, but there is so many components to this, and there is a lot of uncontrollable stress in our lives. But using simple things, the most powerful and most accessible tool you have is your breath, right? At any point during the day, you can stop for a second, even if it's 10 seconds, right? You can stop for a second. You can take 5 slow, deep breaths, feeling the air coming in and out of your nose, right? Just that is part of downregulation. There is some science behind making physical touch points that kind of bring you back to your body. So like rubbing your fingers together, even, again, putting your hands on your legs. There are different things, you can give yourself a hug, a lot of different, just very small but very powerful things you can do to get back into that parasympathetic state consistently throughout the day, right? Doing it once in the morning is great. Doing it once at night is great. But the more you can bring yourself back to this throughout the day, the more effective it's going to be. So other things like, of course, daily walks, legs up the wall is another kind of less convenient, but really powerful tool to use to get you into that parasympathetic state. And then, of course, your sleep, that is going to be huge. Trying to do, again, controlling what you can to get the most restful, deep recovery sleep. So bedtime routine, right? Try and keep it consistent and try and, make your bedtime no later than 10 p.m. So those are things that are actually going to like shift your nervous system out of that fight or flight, put you into the rest and digest, and solve some of that root cause issues. And then, of course, they're mentally going to help you with clarity as well. But as far as sex hormones go, right, estrogen, progesterone supporting the thyroid, liver and detox pathways, these play huge roles in hormone metabolism balance. If these are backed up, if they're sluggish, then estrogen is going to recirculate and it's going to contribute to, again, that bloating, that fluid retention, trouble with weight loss, all of that. So things like hydration, I know, again, just the foundations, right? But so often women come to me and they're like, I'm doing everything, I'm doing all the things. And it's like, how much water do you drink? And they are not drinking enough. They're like, well, not enough. It's like, okay, well, let's start there. Half your body weight in ounces at an absolute minimum. Cruciferous veggies, things like, kale, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, those are all really powerful for helping support the metabolism of estrogen. Lemon water, just citruses in general are great. Sweating, of course. And then most important, making sure you're getting enough fiber and you are pooping daily. Yes, daily at least. 2 to 3 times per day, as long as they are healthy, Bristol floor soft but formed shape poops, then that is great. We want that. Okay. That is a huge part of course, your digestive process. And all of this, of course, are things that we prioritize in our metabolic optimization coaching method and want to make sure to support the nervous system first, right? And then we're optimizing metabolism and hormone function through food, movement, minerals, and personalized protocols. So we're not just fixing symptoms. We want to create real lasting change. So this is a little bit quicker one today, but I hope that you were able to take away some tidbits, start getting to, like I said, the root cause of your bloating, help supporting your body. So if you've been dealing with bloating, you're frustrated because nothing seems to work, I want you to remember that throwing random supplements at the problem just because TikTok and Amazon said they might help, not always helpful. The actual solution depends on your root cause, and not everyone necessarily needs the same kind of probiotic. So making sure that you personalize that to you based on testing can be really, really powerful. Secondly, be careful with over restricting foods. Like I said, the low FODMAP, Whole30, things like that are not necessarily meant to be permanent lifestyles. Some people might argue that they are. Low FODMAP, absolutely not. But when you cut those foods out, one, we don't want you afraid of food. That is not healing. That's going to create some mental anxiety. That's not healthy either. Your gut needs nourishment of all kinds. We need to be thinking about rebuilding and supporting the gut, not just cutting things out. And then making sure to address stress, hormones, and the role that it plays in your digestion. You can have the cleanest diet in the world, but if your nervous system is in, complete overdrive, if your hormones are completely dysregulated, your bloating will keep coming back. You will not fix the problem. So if you are nodding along with this, like, yep, that's me, I'm tracking, but you are ready willing to take a more targeted, supportive approach to fixing your bloat, I have something very exciting. I have just launched the 5-day bloat fix to help you start actually identifying your root cause, reduce bloating naturally without cutting out more foods, without buying another supplement. It's really, I think, a great blend of education, action steps, and then simple strategies that you can start right away to feel lighter, less bloat, more energized, more in control of things, along with starting the process of that long-term solution. So you can grab it in the show notes. I will link you there and start walking you through how to support your gut, calm your nervous system, find your root cause, and get back to sustainable relief. And this is not, there's no products, there's no detox teas. We're just using science-backed, hormone intelligent support designed for real women in real busy lives. So head to the show notes, check it out. Let's finally fix your bloat together. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Fitness Simplified podcast. We are stoked to have you join us on your journey to better health and fitness. If you have any questions, suggestions for future topics, or just want to chat, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Brooke_Elysian and Facebook linked in the show notes, or via our website, ElysianWomen'sWellness.com. If you enjoyed what you heard today, we would be thrilled if you could take a half second to leave us a 5-star rating and review. Not only will you be helping others find our show, but you'll also be entered into our monthly $100 giveaway for new reviews. If there was something you heard that was helpful or impactful, please screenshot it, tag me, and share what it was so that we can bring you more. Plus, you'll be entered into our monthly Legion Recharge post-workout giveaway. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Thanks for listening.